Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is Monday, the 24th of June 2024, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin with the upgradation of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, as well as the beginning of the phase 2 of this very important milestone cooperation between Pakistan and China, and the different aspects, the different corridors that will be part of this China-Pakistan economic corridor, as well as the different security measures that have been taken now for the Chinese officials. Now, while our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was also in China recently, and recently also when there has been one of the important Chinese ministers who has been here as well, one of the topics that has been on discussion is the security of the Chinese personnel in Pakistan. That assurance has now been given by Pakistan as far as that is concerned. Also, there has been a joint communique, or let's say a joint meeting that was held between all the political parties, including those in the opposition, and the Chinese leadership that was here in Pakistan on the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and there was a mutuality and a consensus as far as moving forward of this very important project is concerned. So these are very important prospects and aspects of the China-Pakistan economic corridor and the latest developments as far as that is concerned. We'll be highlighting that in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, today concerns the day 262 of the Israel-Palestine conflict. A lot has happened, whether it be some prospect of a truce or peace talks that could happen, whether it be Netanyahu saying that he is going to scale down the war that is happening in Palestine after this whole barbaric episode that has been going on in Rafah is concerned, whether it be the 21,000 children that are unaccounted for since Israel launched the war in Gaza in October 7 and 2023, whether it be the babies that are dying from malnutrition in different hospitals. The number has increased to 31 of those who have died of thirst and malnutrition. Also, we all know about this young Israeli girl that was killed by an Israeli tank, and latest information regarding that will also be discussed. 37,598 people have lost their lives, have been barbarically killed by Israel since the 7th of October last year. Around 86,032 have been wounded since this war began. This and more and will be part of our second story. Then we'll be talking about the International Day of Women in Diplomacy. This year, today, we are celebrating the International Day of Women in Diplomacy. The theme this year is Women's Leadership in Multilateral Diplomacy. We've had important tweets that have come from our Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar or our Punjab Chief Minister Maryam Nawaz, who says that the provisional government is committed to empower women and promote gender equality, saying that the role in diplomacy is crucial to promote peace and the role of women in that regard. Lastly, we'll be talking about the World Warm Charming Championship that has taken place in Cheshire in the United Kingdom. Hundreds of people descended on Cheshire village for the annual competition that goes on. Charmers from across the globe to Willaston near Nantwich came to try and encourage worms to come out of the soil, and the event has been held in the village for more than 40 years. Now, very interesting championship if we do look at it. Let's begin with our lineup for today, and let's begin with China-Pakistan economic corridor, the upgradation of this very important corridor, and the measures that are now being taken, have been taken for the security of the Chinese officials, and the consensus that is there within all the political parties as far as that is concerned. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Air Commodore retired Basit Raza Abbasi Saab. He is a senior analyst. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us in online rather. We've been joined by our veteran Dr. Hassan Daud Saab. He is a former project director of CPEC. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us as well. We'll begin with you, Air Commodore Saab. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif chairs a meeting in Lahore regarding the law and order situation and security projects, and says that the protection of Pakistani citizens and foreigners in Pakistan is among the top priorities of the state. He says Chinese experts need to be consulted for the formation of the Special Protection Unit. He also has directed to construct a forensic lab according to modern requirements in the Islamabad Safe City project, also for security purposes. How important are these measures when you look at projects such as the China-Pakistan economic corridor?
One thing is very clear, that the present situation of security has created problems for the smooth development of CPEC. The progress of CPEC has been impeded because of the security reasons, and most recent was the Basham incident where 5 Chinese engineers were killed. So, what Prime Minister has voiced is the basic responsibility of any government, the security of the people and foreigners. It is more important for us because CPEC is a vital lifeline for us, and it has been in place since over a decade now, and whatever the results we were supposed to reap out of it have not come out. Although it started with fanfare and lot of work has been done, the infrastructure has improved and the production of electricity has actually multiplied many folds. So, all these things are there, but these were not the means, these were not the ends, these were the means to achieve an end. Somehow or the other we have not been able to do that. And now that this senior minister was in Pakistan, it's very reassuring that the Chinese leadership decided to send their such a senior official to Pakistan to discuss these things. And what he has said is already known to us, and the steps that has been announced now are steps in that direction. Involvement of Chinese in providing the security is a positive step, because we have many times we have assured that we will make sure that we will give them the top class security, but somehow or the other an incident takes place where all those claims are sort of nullified. So, now that we will be actually keeping the Chinese informed about the steps taken by us, perhaps would be more reassuring.
All right.
And if I may add, perhaps you will cover it in the later part of the segment, a very reassuring part in that meeting was the presence of the political parties.
I think that is very important. That is what I was coming to as well, and that's what I am going to ask Dr. Hassan Daud. But Dr. Saab, you know, this third round of joint consultative mechanism of political parties on CPEC and Pakistan-China political parties forum was held in Islamabad on the 21st of this month. What was very reassuring that there was a representation from all the political parties, whether they be from the government or from the opposition, and co-chaired by Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Raza and Minister for IDCPC Liu Jianshao. And of course, there was this commitment that was made by all the political parties to further strengthen bilateral relations with China by thwarting all kinds of nefarious designs. How important, sir, is this consensus of all the political parties regarding CPEC and Pakistan's relations with China?
Thank you very much, Umar. And I think for any development agenda that any government steers, I think one of the basic ingredients has to be sustainability of the project. The other is, of course, creating an enabling environment in which the most important factor will and always we shall remain the security of personal as well as the financial security of the investor. So when someone is investing in Pakistan, as your friend, as an investor looking after your economic interests, I think the key element remains to ensure that all their requirements, including their security requirements, are safeguarded. So in that respect, I think this meeting was extreme.
All right, there seems to be some kind of technical glitch as far as our conversation with Dr. Hassan Daud is concerned, but of course we will get back to him at the earliest. We will revert to Air Commodore Basit Abbasi Saab. While talking in this third Pakistan-China joint consultative mechanism meeting of the CPEC, Mr. Liu Jianshao, who is Minister for the International Development of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, says that internal stability is necessary for development. Security situation is better for investment. Institutions and political parties have to work together. He remarks we need to improve security and the business environment. Security threats are the main hazards disturbing CPEC cooperation. I am just quoting what he says because he speaks very well English. He also says, as people often say, confidence is more precious than gold. In the case of Pakistan, the primary factor shaking the confidence of Chinese investors is the security situation. And he says, without security, the business environment, the security of the country cannot really improve, which may in turn undermine the development in the long run. What is the way forward from here?
I think there are two main things to be done. One is the security measures that are being taken. We talk of this, we had this Azm-e-Istehkam and all these things to sort of curb the menace of terrorism. That is what is required. But I think a more important factor is the sort of consensus amongst all the political parties. Look, we want to emulate Chinese model. Chinese have made tremendous progress, but Chinese is a totalitarian society and their state controls the matters very firmly. Look at our system. Our government system is, we have full autonomy for the provinces, and the interest of provinces do not match with the sort of the vision or the sort of path laid down by the federal government. So there is internal dissension at the government level.
All right.
And as far as we as a society are concerned, we are deeply fragmented. We have our own political affiliations and we actually cannot tolerate another's point of view. So all these things have to be addressed, and unless that sort of cohesion and that sort of unity of direction, rather I would say selection of direction is there would not be too rapid a progress. Unless we all pull in the same direction. If
unless there is consensus.
Consensus, this is what, in one word it's consensus, both at political level, government level and the people level.
All right.
So all these consensus have to be achieved, and that's why I pointed out that it was very heartening that all the political parties were in that meeting, but that just ended there. There was no follow-up. That was what can be termed as rhetoric. It had to be translated into concrete steps and actions. But that we see is missing. It's I think 4 or 5 days that this meeting took place, and still our political leadership is fragmented. They are not sort of coming to a sort of.
Maybe on CPEC they are on one page, and that only will, the next couple of days will really pave the way for that, for us to really realize how much of a consensus there is present. Dr. Hassan Daud, but I'll again come back to the political consensus of it all. JUI Chief Maulana Fazlur Rehman says there is a national consensus in Pakistan on CPEC. Pakistan-China friendship is beyond our mutual differences. Planning Minister Hassan Iqbal says that despite political differences, all the political parties are in agreement regarding China and CPEC and are committed to strengthen the upgraded version. Chairman Pakistan-China Institute Mushahid Hussain Sayyed reiterates the commitment of the political parties to take the CPEC 2 forward. He also proposes an establishment of a rapid response information system to counter fake news aimed at damaging CPEC and Pak-China relation. Then there is Senator Ali Zafar, who says that there is a need to speed up all the projects. Afrasiab Khatak Saab cautions against the designs of the hegemonic forces in the region who is trying to disrupt peace. How important are all the measures that have been underlined during this meeting? And I would like to specifically talk about the proposed establishment of rapid response information system to counter fake news that is aimed at damaging CPEC and Pak-China relations.
One of the most important and critical aspects that has been highlighted during the recent World Economic Forum, and one of the challenge going forward from here for the next 5 years, is misinformation and disinformation. And it's more critical than the environmental challenges, more critical from the political challenges in terms of geopolitical atmosphere that is brewing. This misinformation and disinformation actually thwarts some of the work, very critical work that countries, especially developing countries, want to do in terms of their development agenda. So for Pakistan, we need to safeguard on this, and for this, having mechanism of similar sorts are extremely vital. And for them, actually, they need to understand the modern trends of how narratives are being built and counter narratives are focused. So when you work on CPEC phase 2 and when you're working on certain agenda, including the development of agriculture sector, science and technology, and perhaps building on the infrastructure development, I think what would be more critical is that we also build up our abilities, our human resource, our productivity in terms of building the right kind of narrative around this. In terms of security, I would just allow me to say one important aspect is that I think when we go forward and when we look at some of the key aspects, and my colleague also spoke about emulating the Chinese model, I think what we need to understand in terms of security challenges is to perhaps embrace technology. If you can embrace technology and show your presence not in the form of cowboy style of security, but also in a digital sphere of security, I think some of these challenges that have been highlighted more recently by our friends and investors would be addressed. When you want to invest in a country, what you look at is both financial, and I highlighted this earlier also, financial security and also physical security. So if your entire apparatus, which is around these two critical elements, including the security agencies, including State Bank and its ancillary organizations, if they cannot ensure these two, then investment in your country and attracting investment in your country would be challenged. But what I'm seeing is recently is that the government, through SIFC and through a whole of government approach, is perhaps focused in moving towards a direction where that pull factor is being created for Chinese to come back, work. And we have seen, because of political reason, because of COVID-19, the Chinese shut the kind of utilities and infrastructure which is required for those in industrial and special economic zone. I think Pakistan is on the right path, maybe moving slowly, but I think moving in the right direction.
On the right path slowly, but in the right direction. Our planning minister Hassan says work on the 5 corridors will be beginning in the upgraded version of CPEC. He says the first corridor will be the corridor of growth to bring rapid economic development. Second corridor, the corridor of livelihood to eradicate poverty. Then the third corridor is the corridor of innovation, which will be on artificial intelligence, while the fourth will deal with the green economy. And he says the benefits of CPEC will be shared with other regional countries to include them in the project under the last corridor of regional development. How important are these corridors of the CPEC, and how robustly do we need to move forward?
I think, Omar, in that context, one of the key elements is for us to understand how is the world transforming. And in this time and age, 3 factors are critical. One is your geography, which Pakistan is endowed with. The other is your human resource, how big and how capable is your human resource. And third is your regional connectivity. So all these corridors, as you've highlighted, and Minister Planning has been speaking about it, promoting this. I think they support your natural endowment in terms of making it a more regional, well-connected, strong economic transshipment hub that Pakistan has the potential for. Whether we actually implement the kind of initiatives that the Minister of Planning is speaking about, we'll see. But is this the right approach? Absolutely, this is the right approach. We need focused approach towards innovation. We need focused towards economic transformation, perhaps embracing new technologies, the industrial revolution. And the only country that can support you at this time, despite all your challenges, despite all the rhetoric around Pakistan and the challenges that we keep speaking about, I think it's China. China is here for Pakistan through CPEC, through Belt and Road Initiative, through Global Development and Global Security Initiative. All these initiatives, if you link the 5 corridors, if you link with these initiatives, I think Pakistan can achieve this in much faster time. But the most critical aspect will remain, and on which our entire focus, the whole of government focus should be, building your productivity and capacity to actually work on what you are saying. Otherwise, they will just remain mere political rhetoric.
I think our focus, and inshallah, will be more focused in the coming days as well to move this second phase of CPEC in a more robust fashion. Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan Daud, to have joined us, former project director of CPEC, talking to us about the China-Pakistan economic corridor, the security concerns that the Chinese have, and Pakistan's telling the Chinese that they will be doing the needful, as has been also shown in this meeting that was held today under the direction of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns day 262 of the Israel-Palestine conflict that has been going on. Despite many attempts at some kind of truce between the two sides, that truce has yet to happen, despite the fact that the United Nations Security Council has recently also promulgated or accepted or passed a resolution. Despite that, Israel is still moving forward with the barbarities as far as Palestine is concerned, as far as Rafah is concerned. Air Commodore Basit Raza, Abbasi Saab, Senior Analyst, continues to join us for this very important segment as well. Sir, we'll begin. I'd like to just highlight some of the casualties that have recently happened. 8 Palestinians killed on Sunday in an Israeli airstrike on a training college near Gaza city, which was run by the UNRWA agency, which is a United Nations agency. And one of the director of communications says that since the beginning of the war, 190 of their buildings have been hit, and 193 team members of the United Nations RWA have been killed in the conflict. Then there are strikes on the clinics in Gaza city. Then a Palestinian soccer player and his family are killed in their home in Gaza. Then in Jenin, Israeli troops tie a wounded Palestinian man to a military vehicle. It reminds us of what happened in India illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. It's a repetition of in fact the same incident. Soldiers have, as far as many organizations say, violated operational procedures. Israeli forces have also arrested 9,363 Palestinians in West Bank since the 7th of October, and as I pointed out, the casualties have exceeded 37,598, and up to 21,000 children are unaccounted for since this war started. Are there any signs, Commodore Sab, of this outrage, this barbarism ending anytime soon?
This what you just narrated, it says every day there is a new tale of horror and terror written by Israel in Gaza, and the world is watching. So it's very unfortunate part that the main supporters of Israel are still at the beck and call of Mr. Netanyahu. I would say America, United Kingdom, Germany. I mean, despite all these things, and despite a lot of hue and cry in their own countries, the governments have not changed their policies. And one reason for that is that if you see the main political parties, be in UK, be in USA or Germany, they are all pro-Israel. The one in power and the one vying to be in power. The Labour and the Conservative in UK, and Republican and Democrats in USA, and Germany again same thing. So this is a problem that these governments, because they created Israel for their own benefits, and they still feel that Israel is an important entity for them, and so they continue to back all these horrific episodes which are written every day over there. So as far as Mr. Netanyahu is concerned, he has a free hand. There is a lot of lip service. We hear statements. I am talking of the main supporters. Although the world perception has changed. We have seen this Spain and Ireland and Norway recognizes Israel, and it's a European country, Spain. And their foreign minister has said that we'll actually ask the other European countries to sort of look into these things and take measures against it and try to stop the genocide in Gaza. So all these steps are being taken there, and the consensus of the world has changed. Previously, because of the Western propaganda, most of the Western nations were pro-Israel, but now that perception has changed. But so long as these main supporters of Israel keep backing them up, Mr. Netanyahu has no real serious challenge. His challenges are more domestic, because there is internal dissent. The people whose relatives are in a captivity, they have been demonstrating, and they have been asking, and there have been ministers, the coalition partners from Mr. Netanyahu's government, 2 of them have at least resigned so far, very important ones. So all these changes are taking place, and this may compel, this internal dissent may perhaps compel him to come to sort of compromise. But so far it's not in sight.
But when you look at the compromise, I don't see by the terms or the language that Mr. Netanyahu is using that there will be any compromise whatsoever. There might be a little toning down, but I don't think there will be any compromise. Now, Yoav Gallant, who is the Israeli defense minister, is in Washington for critical talks on the Gaza offensive and surging cross-border tensions also with the Hezbollah. And of course, there is increasing tension with Hezbollah as well, but we'll come a bit later on that. Yoav Gallant says his ties with Israel's ties with the US are more important than ever, and that their meetings with the US officials are critical to this war. And he's referring to the war with Palestine. At the same time, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also hopes for speedy progress. Herein, he said this in an interview, on unfreezing US arms and ammunition deliveries from Israel's top ally, which he said had dropped off sharply in the recent months. The US, as we know, is Israel's biggest arms supplier during its 9-month war against Palestine. How important now is the role of the US? And this becomes even more apparent that there are tensions between the US and Israel because of Netanyahu asking to unfreeze the arms that the US has currently reduced as far as Israel is concerned. What's your take on that?
I think along with that news which you just quoted, there was a statement from the American side which who expressed, an official who expressed sort of surprise
yes.
that they are continuing with the supplies, and how does Netanyahu says that they've been curtailed or
so
reduced?
What's going on?
So I think it is just to pressurize, because Mr. Biden, the American president, is under pressure from the internal we saw the campus protest which took place and which really shook America, and also so many people who have from the government who have been resigning, and even from the armed forces, the airmen.
Of course, this is what I want to come to as well. 3 more US officials, 2 from the military, resigned this week alone in protest against Washington's support for the Israeli military operations, whether it be Larry Herbert or whether it be Juan Betancourt, who have announced their unwillingness to continue serving in light of the US military's role in their in this conflict. Andrew Miller, who is a senior official at the US Department of State and expert on Israel-Palestine affairs, also resigns. He expresses his discontent with the Biden administration policies amid this 8-month-long conflict in Gaza as well. The Mr. Betancourt, he says something, and I'd like to quote that. He says, I see the slaughter of thousands of innocent civilians, all while the world watches through their smartphones. This disagreement with US policy also highlights a growing dissent that is emerging within the ranks of the US government. What do you foresee if this conflict continues, if the US continues to side, provides arms and ammunition the same way it has been doing to Israel? Will this growing discontent lead to some kind of a change, or will this discontent be able to somehow be controlled?
This is what I pointed out earlier. An unfortunate fact is that the main political parties, there are 2 in US and 2 in UK.
And both sides.
They both are pro-Israel, deeply pro-Israel. So this is what it is. The public dissent and public displeasure can throw a government out. But what is the alternative? The new government which comes in is perhaps more pro-Israel. So this is an unfortunate situation from which there is no sort of in sort of near future we don't see coming out of it.
All right.
And as far as those people of conscience actually there's one airman who committed suicide.
Yes, he put himself on fire in front of the
That was a few months back, and these 2 guys have now resigned. So this is actually good, but look at it, that Israel has been in existence since last 75 years. And there has been a propaganda from the schools, from the textbooks and films and every sort of information available for the plight of the poor Jews and the Holocaust and all those things. And the minds of the populace have been so biased in favor of Israel that it will take a long time. It has already taken 9 months for these small changes to take place. I don't know how much more time,
but
and how much more.
How long do the Palestinians have, with the number dwindling, with the people being denied food, medicine, water, and other basic facilities? How long can they survive without all of this?
Actually, it's the world conscience. How long will it take to do something sort of significant? Although there have been voices, Spain actually moved its consulate into Jerusalem.
And you saw the reaction from Israel as well.
So all these small changes are taking place, but not enough to make a major change and stop the aggression. What will perhaps, I see the conflict is growing, because now that they sort of they feel that they have done sufficient damage and destruction in Gaza, they want to shift over to the Lebanese side and tackle Hezbollah. If at all as if you read the statement of Mr. Netanyahu, the conflict in Gaza is sort of being toned down
because they want
a new
to shift
front
it
is to be
towards.
opened and the forces have to be shifted there.
Because I mean, but this opening of new front, won't it give rise to an escalation of war? Won't it engulf more and more countries?
Actually, this is the problem, that any country these days it's very difficult to afford a war. And Israel is a very small country, it has not a significant economy, but it's the American largesse which sustains it financially, and American and Western hardware which supports it militarily. And unless these two sources are dried up, the war will continue and these measures will continue, unfortunately.
All right. Air Commodore Sahab, Yoav Gallant, who is in the US, has described in the past Palestinians as human animals when he ordered a complete siege of the Gaza Strip on the 9th of October. And now, because of comments such as these, the International Criminal Court had applied for a warrant for his arrest, through the chief prosecutor, who was Karim Khan. Who said the investigation had found that Gallant along with Netanyahu could be responsible for war crimes and crimes against the humanity, including the use of starvation as a method of war. We know that the US and Israel do not recognize the ICC's jurisdiction, and in fact US Republican representatives and some Democrats have called for the US to bar entry for the ICC officials and restrict their US-based property transactions in protest against these seeking of the warrants against Gallant and Netanyahu. What's your comment on that?
Actually, this is the problem. The Americans and Israel don't recognize ICC and ICJ. So, I mean, they will not change. I mean, these judgments, they may actually knock on the world's conscience, but as far as these parties are concerned, they will not change course.
Because he's also, Netanyahu is also going to address the joint session of the US
week.
Congress next week or next month, I think. This is going to happen in the next days as well. So, all of this, we see a growing escalation not only between countries but also between organizations that are important, such as the ICC, such as the ICJ, and countries such as Israel and the United States. Now, Yoav Gallant, who talks about the transition to phase C, and this is what you were also alluding to, in Gaza is of great importance. He says he's going to discuss this transition with US officials, how it may enable additional things, and I don't know that we will achieve close cooperation with the US on this issue as well. Netanyahu says the intense phase of this fight against Hamas will end very soon. This intense phase does not mean that he's going to end it. He said just this intense phase, and Israeli troops are likely to be moved with on the border with Lebanon as well. He also stresses that Israel expects to maintain its military presence in the Palestinian territory in Gaza in the near future. And the Israeli military operations would change tactically, but absolutely not strategically. This has been said by Israel's communications minister Karhi following Netanyahu's remarks. When and if this phase C takes place, I mean, this is a huge question mark. What could be the outcome? Will Israel ever be held accountable for the genocide, for the crimes against humanity that it has undergone since the 7th of October last year?
Actually, in strictly military terms, phase C or phase 3 is the actual open war.
Okay.
But that war has already been going on. I really do not know what do they mean by phase C. But that statement of Mr. Netanyahu which you referred is full of contradictions. On one hand, as you just pointed out, he says that it will be curtailed, and then on the next, in the same breath, he says that talks of continued presence of Israel and management of the affairs in Gaza. They want people of their choice to sort of be there.
They don't want Hamas, they don't want the Palestinian Authority. They want people of their choosing to govern Palestine. So, in fact, they want to govern Palestine, isn't it?
Exactly. That's right. This is actually full of contradictions, and this is typically a mindset of a person who is not at peace with himself, because what he is doing actually doesn't make sense. It's not good for it's not good even for Israel. Israelis are also dying there, and they can ill afford those deaths because there's a very small population. But it's the arrogance, it's the sort of their hatred against the Palestinians which is forcing them to continue with that. And that extreme elements in their government led, whose leader is Mr. Netanyahu, who want this war to continue and this destruction to continue, more on for the Palestinians and part of it for themselves also.
Commander Saab, there have been casualties, deaths of children, around 31 because of malnutrition, lack of water, dehydration. According to representatives of hospitals in Palestine, there are more than 200 children who are currently at risk of dying due to malnutrition. Director General of Gaza's Health Ministry says that goods and nutritional supplements for children have not entered the besieged facility since the last 2 months. Then, in the northern area of Gaza or part of Gaza, Palestinians have been hit hardest by hunger. There is acute shortage of vegetables, fruit and meat. They are even surviving on bread alone. What are you foreseeing as far as this whole famine-like situation that has developed in Palestine is concerned? Is there any way out for the Palestinians?
At the moment, there seems to be no way out of it, because unfortunately, the Muslim countries who sort of feel very sympathetic are unable to do anything. And the international agencies, UN top of them, they have been sort of, they are crying hoarse that this is required, but they are not able to sort of push these things. Americans try to build a pier and sort of push the supplies from the seaside.
When they should have done it through a land route.
Exactly. I mean, why can't they say that if you don't open the route, we will not supply to you the arms? This is a very simple thing to do. But you know, this is the lack of sincerity, not absence of sincerity, total absence of sincerity between the words and deeds of the Western powers. And they are actually, I feel that not only the Israeli Prime Minister and officials, but those who are supporting them, their backers, may also be sort of criminalized.
And need to be tried in international courts as well.
Because without their support, this could not have continued.
I agree with you on that. The Human Rights Watch's Director of Child Rights, Joe Becker, says that the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres' inclusion of Israel on the United Nations list of countries that have committed grave violations against children in armed conflict has been fully justified, because there has been a lot of hue and cry, especially from Israel, as to why it has been put there. How important is this inclusion of Israel and this acceptance through the United Nations of what Israel is doing? Leave alone the less, just to children.
I don't see a significant change, because United Nations, the only potent agency is the Security Council. And apart from Security Council, it's more of a debating society where people sort of express themselves and go away. There are no concrete actions flow out of those statements. So I don't see much of hope in that. It's only knocking at the conscience of the world leaders and international agencies to sort of come out and do something about it. But that coordinated and forceful effort is not there.
All right.
It's very, very fragmented effort and small measures which cannot drastically change the lot of the Palestinians inside Gaza.
Finally, Abbasi Saab, Joe Biden a couple of days back said he did not expect to see a Gaza deal in the future. The same Joe Biden who had talked time and again and said forced the resolution to be passed through the United Nations Security Council this time, but nothing has happened since then. We also have heard the remarks of Netanyahu that he says he's interested in some sort of a ceasefire deal, a pause in fighting, but that the war would still need to continue, which means that even if there is a pause in the fighting, the Israeli army is going to continue until all of its objectives are achieved. What do you foresee as far as this peace deal is concerned?
What I only see is that American elections are approaching. And Mr. Biden is actually worried about his presidency. We have already talked about the dissent which is taking place and being voiced very vociferously in the United States. So this pause actually may materialize. I mean, it may materialize just to sort of give him a sort of leeway to sort of proceed with his campaign. Very soon a debate is also going to
Yes.
take place, I think, end of the
Yes.
month, 27 June
Yes,
or something is
exactly.
the date. So that is where he will be facing his challenger, and the support for his challenger is very strong. His vote bank has not been affected. And on the contrary, the president has been losing some sort of popularity because of his measures, his backing of Israel. And so he is to find some way to actually generate that pause. And I think this is the only thing which may happen, but nothing beyond that. It's not foreseeable.
So let's see what happens. Air Commodore Basit Raza, Abbasi Saab, Senior Analyst, thank you very much, sir, to have joined us, to have stayed during the whole course of the show, because it was very important to have your point of view as far as these important issues that plague the region, the world are concerned. Thank you, sir, for your presence. Let's come to our last two stories very, very quickly. The first is the International Day for Women in Diplomacy that is being observed today. The theme is women's leadership in multilateral diplomacy. We've got two important messages that have come from our Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar Sahab, as well as our Punjab Chief Minister Maryam Nawaz. Now, Ishaq Dar Sahab says that throughout our history, Pakistani women have made tremendous contributions in the field of diplomacy, like Begum Rana Liaquat Ali Khan, Madam Shaista Ikramullah, Muhtarma Benazir Bhutto, and many others who broke the barriers and set the path for hundreds of women diplomats who continue to represent Pakistan on the international stage with grace and dignity. On the occasion of this day, I applaud them all and thank them for their services and contributions. Punjab's Chief Minister Maryam Nawaz has also said that the provincial government is committed to empower women and promote gender equality. She said the women's role in diplomacy is crucial to promote peace. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, today, not today, but in one part of the world, the World Warm Charming Championship was held in Cheshire in the UK. Now, hundreds of people descended on this Cheshire village for the annual championships that are held. Charmers from across the world came to try to encourage worms to come out of the soil. The event has been held in this village for more than 40 years and now has set a world record. This year's winners, of course, were two families, the Jones and the Weavers families, who said they were very proud to take home the trophy. The current world record is held by 10-year-old Sophie Smith, who has charmed 567 worms out of the ground in this event when it happened in the year 2009. An interesting championship, to say the least, to collect as many worms as possible, to charm these worms, in fact, out of their habitation and to collect them in this unique World Worm Charming Championship. We'll be bringing more of such news in our future shows as well, as we have been doing that. But for the moment, that's all for today. Omar, Khalid bids you farewell. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news and stories that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.